You didn't lose sleep. God took it. Because while you try to rest, He's trying to wake you up, not to punish you, but to show you what you pretended to heal. Your mind doesn't repeat by accident. It repeats to reveal. Every time the past comes back, it's not memory, but it's diagnosis. It's God pointing at where you still bleed. You call it overthinking, but it's surgery without anesthesia. He's opening wounds you covered with productivity, faith, or distraction. And until you face them, the loop won't stop. You pray for peace, but God won't give peace where there's still a lie. He waits for the silence of the night, when your masks sleep and only your soul stays awake. That's when He confronts you. You say, I can't think anymore. But what if thinking is His method? What if every memory is a living verse trying to teach you something? It's not the devil tormenting you, and it's God reprogramming you. You want it to end, but He wants you to understand. Because while you're asking for rest, He's asking for awakening. The question is, do you want peace or transformation? You keep trying to silence your mind, but maybe God is just trying to teach you to listen. Here, every story reveals what He's saying behind the silence, and why your sleepless pain is the beginning of your healing. Subscribe now to Soul Logic, because understanding yourself is the first step to understanding what God is doing in you. Each video is a mirror for the soul, where psychology meets faith, and what once felt like chaos starts to make sense. You're not alone in this search. There's an entire generation awake at 3 a.m., trying to understand the same emptiness. And here, together, we learn to turn that emptiness into meaning. Click the button and subscribe now. You think you're overthinking, but really, you're underfeeling. The mind speaks loud, when the heart was trained to stay silent. That's how old pain finds its way out. Jung called it the shadow, the forgotten side of us. Everything you tried to bury, guilt, anger, fear, rejection. But nothing disappears just because it's ignored. The unconscious doesn't forgive what the conscious pretends to forget. That's why the night feels so heavy. No noise, no distraction. The soul uses the silence to demand attention. It wants to be seen, heard, integrated. But you call it insomnia. You got used to living in survival mode. Control, predict, explain, so you don't have to feel. But control doesn't heal. It only delays what God wants to transform. Every repeated thought is an attempt at inner reconciliation. The mind shows you the wound, hoping this time you'll stay. But you run again, mistaking it for weakness, and miss your moment of healing. God doesn't want you to fight your mind. He wants you to listen to what it's saying, because the mind speaks in words, but the soul speaks in symptoms. What if confusion isn't punishment, but invitation? An invitation to descend into the basement where you stored what you couldn't face, where light doesn't reach, but truth still lives. That's where God begins the work daylight won't allow. Rumination isn't illness, it's message. A divine reminder that something inside is unfinished. The noise isn't absence. It's the sound of God moving through what you avoided. And until you face your shadow, it will keep calling your name. Every night, the same way, until you answer. You think thinking solves it. But overthinking is the most elegant form of avoidance. You call it analysis, but it's fear disguised as wisdom. The mind builds theories, so it doesn't have to face truth. That's how pain becomes emotional productivity. You replay conversations, scenarios, what-ifs, all to control what's already gone. But control is a beautiful lie. It makes you feel in charge, while keeping you chained. Because those who control never surrender, and those who never surrender never heal. You want to understand to feel safe, but God wants you to feel to be free. Human logic says, think and solve. Divine logic says, surrender and see. That's why your head aches. It's fighting faith. You want certainty, but God wants to teach trust. The problem isn't pain. It's the pride of believing you can heal yourself. You dissect your wounds like a self-made surgeon. But healing doesn't come to those who analyze. It comes to those who accept. While you think, God waits. He waits for the moment you stop being right, to finally be free. You think silence means absence, but it means preparation. God doesn't answer when you speak to win the argument. He answers when you go quiet to listen. The mind wants explanation, but God moves through contradiction. Thinking became your armor, but it also became your cage. You don't sleep because you don't trust, and you don't trust because you still believe peace comes from knowing. But faith doesn't begin when it all makes sense. Faith begins when you stop trying to make it make sense. You thought you were being attacked, but you were being taught. While you complained about insomnia, heaven prepared a conversation. Because when everyone sleeps, God speaks to those still awake. Proverbs says, "When you sleep, they will guard you. When you awake, they will speak to you." You thought it was punishment. It was protection. Your restless mind isn't your enemy. It's your spiritual guard. It wakes you up when something inside can no longer stay ignored. What keeps you awake is what God uses to awaken you. He guards you through unrest so you won't return to numbness. Pain is the soul's alarm clock. Discomfort is heaven's signal. You think God wants you calm, but sometimes He wants you conscious. Before peace comes perception. Before rest comes reflection. What the day hides with noise, the night reveals with clarity. That's why He calls you in the silence. When the masks sleep, it's not insomnia, it's instruction. God is whispering what the noise has kept you from hearing. Rumination is the secret language of transformation. Every repeated thought is a verse being translated in your mind. You're not reliving the past, you're decoding the purpose. And the more it hurts, the closer you are to revelation. God never wastes pain. He turns every memory into a tool, every tear into a lens, every sleepless night into wisdom. What looked like torture was training. Training for faith that doesn't need certainty, for peace that doesn't need control, for awareness that sees even in the dark. You didn't lose sleep. You lost the right to stay blind. And when your mind speaks too loud, it's because God stopped whispering. Now, He wants you to listen. Write in the comments, "God, I want to learn what the silence is trying to tell me." You want to stop overthinking, then stop silencing your body. Your mind screams because your body carries what your mouth never said. The silence you call faith is repressed emotion in disguise. Healing begins when you let your body feel what your mind refuses to recall. Slow breaths, unexpected tears, chills, they're physical prayers. They're not weakness. They're the spirit clearing the path. Jung said, "Nothing that becomes conscious can be cured while it's denied." God confirms it when He calls you to light. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And the first truth is simple. You feel. Feeling isn't sin. It's transformation. Your first action is simple. Stop running from discomfort. Sit with it. Pray while it burns. Say, "God, show me what I'm trying to avoid." When the mind starts racing, don't silence it. Breathe. Place your hand over your heart. Ask, "What is this pain trying to tell me?" That question turns chaos into conversation. You stop being a prisoner and become a listener. Rumination stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher, because God speaks to those who dare to ask with their hearts. Each night, instead of fighting your thoughts, watch them, write them down, pray over what hurts. And notice, every sleepless night returns a lost part of you. God isn't punishing you with memories. He's returning you to yourself. Your mind isn't broken. It's obeying heaven, and heaven is teaching you to feel without fear. You've tried to fight your mind with more thought, but God calls you to win it through surrender. What logic tries to fix, only surrender can heal. The healing of the mind begins when you stop fighting it. You want to sleep, then stop running. Pray, not for silence, but for meaning. Because God doesn't want to mute you. He wants to teach you to turn noise into prayer. Next time sleep doesn't come, don't resist. Talk to Him. Say, "Lord, if this is how you teach me, stay until I understand." And you'll see, the same thought that tormented you will begin to calm, not because it vanished, but because it was heard. The mind quiets once it fulfills its purpose. It only screams when ignored, but when embraced, it prays with you. Surrender is practical. Stop trying to conquer fear. Pray inside it, because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the presence of faith. The rest God offers isn't the absence of thoughts. It's the awareness of His presence. The peace of not needing to understand to trust, of closing your eyes, and finally resting awake. God doesn't want you to shut down your mind. He wants you to consecrate it. And when the mind bows, the spirit rises. Silence stops being war and becomes communion. You used to fear the night, but that's when God loved you most. Because in those hours between thoughts and sighs, He taught you to listen. What you called insomnia was intimacy. Now you see, it wasn't punishment, it was protection. Every memory, every replay, was a thread stitching what you had torn. Your mind wasn't betraying you, it was healing you. And the silence that hurt, Was the sound of your soul returning home. You thought rest meant sleep, but rest begins when your heart stops running, and yours, finally, learned to stay. God didn't want you quiet. He wanted you awake. That's why he kept you up. So you'd hear what daylight hides. So you'd find peace not in control, but in surrender. Now when thoughts come, you don't run. You breathe, you pray, you listen, and you realize your mind isn't your enemy. It's the altar where God still teaches you. The chaos turned into clarity. The pain turned into purpose. The noise turned into prayer. And the silence became home. You didn't lose sleep. You gained awareness. And now, you finally understand. God never kept you awake for nothing. Before you continue this journey, every story reveals why you suffer and what God is teaching you through it. Psychology to understand yourself. Spirituality to understand why. And for you who reached the end of this video, write in the comments, Lord, turn my silence into wisdom. Those who declare it in faith will see sleepless nights turn into mornings of revelation.